U.S. president has declared a national emergency over the coronavirus pandemic as the number of cases rises across the country. Donald Trump described the next 8 weeks as critical to fighting the respiratory illness. He said 500,000 coronavirus tests will be available as early as next week and urged every state to set up emergency centers to treat patients.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. Two very big words. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease. In furtherance of the order, I'm urging every state to set up emergency operation centers effective immediately. I'm also asking every hospital in this country to activate its emergency preparedness plan so that they can meet the needs of Americans everywhere.
So what does this practically mean now on the ground and for Americans, Kimberly?
Well, what it means is that there's going to be a lot more money now to blunt the outbreak here in the United States. We now have more than 1,900 cases of coronavirus in at least 46 states with at least 41 deaths. So there is a real interest of public health officials who spoke in the Rose Garden alongside the U.S. president to try and combat this outbreak. And so they're doing it in a number of ways, not only by declaring a national emergency, which frees up tens of billions for the federal government to coordinate with the state and local governments, but also we saw the president surrounded by a number of key industry officials from the private sector. And what the president has done is kind of taken his transactional approach to government, which we've seen in the past, and this is no exception, bringing in industry leaders from private companies like Google, for example, even Walmart, setting up a website so that Americans can easily on a smartphone access whether or not A, they need a test, and B, if they do, where to get it. Setting up in parking lots around the United States, different areas where people can go and get this test in a very American style. In their cars, there'll be drive-through type swabbing that will be taking place. So this is something that the president is saying will take place by the end of this weekend in terms of the website being set up with the tests, some 500,000 of them by the middle of the week. Now, he also said that there may be up to 5 million tests ultimately available, saying and dismissing, don't think we'll need that many. That could be something that could bite the president later on, but for now, he is continuing to take an optimistic and upbeat tone.
Yeah, and specifically on that tone, Kimberly, what do we make of that? Because the president has faced criticism from some people saying that he's been slow and ineffective in his response to the crisis so far.
Yeah, there's no question about it. In fact, and I don't want to sort of get ahead of my colleague Kristen Salumi. I know you'll be talking about with the financial markets, but that certainly was a key factor that led to a lot of anxiety in this country all across the board. The fact that there seemed to be this feeling that the president may have been even suppressing the availability of tests through his government in order to artificially keep numbers down of the outbreak in terms of coronavirus here in the United States. Now, he was asked in that Rose Garden press conference, do you take responsibility for that? In fact, he said just the opposite. I don't take responsibility for the lag in testing. In fact, he tried to blame the previous administration under Barack Obama, saying it was an outdated system not equipped for this type of a pandemic. They've quickly adapted the system, getting rid of a lot of regulations, allowing for private labs to be involved in coordination with the federal government in order to try and combat this moving forward, saying they'll be set up for success in the future. I think it is a message that at least for now, until the Americans see whether or not it actually works, I think many will find reassuring.
All right, Kimberly, thank you for that update from Washington. Well, you heard Kimberly mentioning markets a moment ago, and they did rally during President Trump's announcement. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up 9.3% after trading around 3% up for most of the day. Thursday saw the greatest losses since the Black Monday crash of 1987. In London, the FTSE 100 initially surged 8%, but gains subsided in afternoon trading to close just 2.4% up. It suffered its biggest weekly loss in more than 30 years. And in Asia, markets plunged in morning trade but managed to claw back initial losses. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index closed down 1.1%. Let's get an update from Kristen Salumi joining us from New York. So how did the markets react to what President Trump had to say?
It was really interesting, Doreen. This press conference was timed shortly before the markets closed, less than an hour before markets closed. President Trump made his remarks, pushing all three of the major stock indices up over 9%, regaining most of what they lost on Thursday. I think there were a couple things that the president did and said that investors found particularly reassuring. The first was talking about increasing testing capacity in the United States. That was a big concern across the board and in this country and with investors in particular. And he did this surrounded by not only health officials, but corporate CEOs representing companies like Walmart and Google and Walgreens, talking about what was being done to increase testing capacity and showing that businesses are going to be part of that solution. I think that's something that investors in particular will find very reassuring. He also announced that the Energy Department would be buying up oil to top off the strategic oil reserves for the country. That was also something that the markets found very reassuring. Oil prices, which had been plummeting, went up a bit today. Energy stocks, which also had been suffering as a result of lower demand and a price war between the Russians and the Saudis, they went up today as well. So there was good news there for investors. Sharp contrast to earlier in the week when the president addressed the nation and announced a travel ban, restricted travel from Europe to the United States. That sent the markets tumbling. Also, he announced that there would be a relief package, but it was very vague, not a lot of details. They did not find that reassuring at all. So the president took a more aggressive and specific tone in his remarks today, surrounding himself with all of those professionals, and it seemed to work. It's still not clear whether or not Congress and the White House will be able to get together and what they're going to do in terms of a relief package per se, what will be passed. But for now, definitely calming fears. The volatility index for the markets, which shows just how jittery investors are, has been sky high in the last week, and it's down at the close of the markets today, down 25%. So that's a sign that, at least for now, investors are breathing a sigh of relief.
All right. Kristen Salumi, thank you.